Welcome to Bet on It, the NFL Divisional Round. We've got 4 games this weekend, and of course, best bets. Houston at Baltimore, Green Bay at San Francisco, Tampa Bay at Detroit, and Kansas City at Buffalo. We're going to get right into some of our, predictions, if you will, for this round. Let's bring in Marco D'Angelo and Joe Raineri, both of WagerTalk.com. Welcome in, gentlemen. Well, I'm just going to say it. That was the easiest best bet I've had all year. Finally, it only took until Wild Card Weekend where I got to have a rocking chair winner. And most importantly, it was in person. Thank you to our producer, Dan's Philadelphia Eagles, for making that one easy for me. Marco, how was your weekend?
Well, it would have been a lot better if the Lions would have covered the game. And we always talk about just pick the winner in the playoffs, and you usually have the point spread winner. But lo and behold, Kelly, I know, I'm sure you sent your buddy John Murray a text pointing out that there was a 1-point decision in the NFL. But other than that, it's been a good run for me with basketball going right now, and looking forward to the playoffs this week. Some very interesting matchups, to say the least.
And we're going to get into all of those matchups. But first, Mr. Raineri, how was your weekend?
Oh, yeah. See, behind me, I have that wonderful CLV trophy when I got, Buffalo at 40.5 or an under when there were supposed to be 30-mile-an-hour winds and 20 feet of snow. But unfortunately, that went to the wayside because they moved the game. So that was a lot of fun there. But ultimately, Buffalo was the one who we wanted to win. They did win, setting up what is going to be one of the most epic showdowns in the AFC this season. So looking forward to Bills Mafia taking on the Swifties here. Should be very interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get into that last. We also have some TNA with Ralph Michaels and, of course, some prop shop with Andy Lang. But first, let's get into those Saturday games. ESPN 4:30 Eastern, the Houston Texans now up to 9.5 on the Wager Talk odds screen at Baltimore. And this one is coming down as far as the total goes, 43.5. Marco, Houston Texans, easy peasy lemon squeezy. That team, no issues for me. Love them for that. Just 2.5-point underdogs. I teased them. And of course, I had the money line because, as you said, just pick the winner. Well, just pick the winner is a lot harder when you have to lay 9.5 or, minus $4 on the money line here. You think it's worth taking the points? Lamar Jackson historically has not been a playoff contender.
Yeah, Kelly, and the narrative for this game is going to be, first of all, hats off to C.J. Stroud. Everything that he has done this year has been simply amazing for the rookie, and he continues to get better. And I was with you on the Texans last week. Yeah, I had them in teasers as well. And the thing that I liked about them last week, and I thought it was a huge advantage for them, playing Cleveland, a team that, let's be honest, doesn't have a lot of recent playoff experience. I thought the Texans had a leg up because, in my opinion, they already had a playoff game. The final week of the regular season, when they had to go to Indianapolis, win to get in, that was a playoff game, and they were able to win on the road, and that was a big confidence booster for them. And then for the Cleveland Browns, well, Joe Flacco finally had a bad game, and he picked the worst time to do it. That defense for Cleveland, it's been horrible down the stretch. The last 6 weeks, we talked about that this was a Super Bowl caliber defense. Well, it wasn't the last 6 weeks, and especially when they played on the road. It's going to be a different story this week going to Baltimore. Now, you can say, well, Baltimore doesn't have, they had the week off. They had actually 2 weeks off because if you remember, they rested all of the starters the final week of the season. I'm not worried about that with Baltimore. And I know people are going to be quick to point out that when these two played in week 1, that was C.J. Stroud's first game as an NFL quarterback. Yes, it was. And yes, he is definitely much better. He's progressed throughout the entire season. But if you remember, it was the first game of the season. Lamar Jackson did not play in the preseason very much, and he was coming off of an injury the year before where he didn't finish the season. Add into the fact that they had a new offense as well. So I think that everybody's going to make a big deal out of C.J. Stroud. First start, he's much better now. this is a different Lamar Jackson at the end of the season than he was at the beginning of the season, and that playoff experience. And let's be honest, he's not going against the Cleveland defense this week. He's going against the Baltimore defense, which has played well. And to be honest with you, if you look at these two teams, both defenses have played well down the stretch. Houston has allowed 20 points or more only once in the final 5 weeks. And Baltimore has held 4 straight opponents to 19 points or less. Where am I going? Yeah, I'm going to play contrarian in this one, and I'm looking at the under, Kelly. People are going to look. They're going to look at that 45 that Houston hung up last week. They're going to look at Baltimore the last time the starters played 2 weeks ago against Miami. They hung up 56. Who in the world is going to want to go under 43.5? This guy. I'm taking under Baltimore and Houston on Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy there, Marco. That worries me a whole hell of a lot, but it would appear the market agrees with you. Joe Raineri, I know we're going to talk about this game next, but I just had my little Hard Rock account open down here in the beautiful state of Florida, and I looked, I said, oh God, everybody in their right mind is going to money line the Ravens and money line the Niners for basically a minus $2 parlay, which is disgusting. So I will not be partaking in that. But makes me wonder if it's just so easy, who's going to lose outright? Do you think it could be the Ravens?
Well, those same people probably did exactly that with Dallas last week, and that worked wonders, didn't it? Yes, that worked out well. Here's the point with divisional round matchups right now when we're at this particular point of the game. All the frauds are out, guys. There are no more teams that we can laugh. There's no more Joe Flacco's. There's no more Dallas. There's no more teams that probably shouldn't be here. What we are left with, and I don't think it is a shock, is we are left with the quarterbacks who are the best and who are leading their team and playing their best football right now. It is no shock that Stroud and Houston are here. It is no shock that Jordan Love and Green Bay are in this round. Certainly isn't a shock Lamar Jackson, who's probably going to be the MVP, is going to be there. This is a quarterback-driven league. We always say the NBA is a stars league, right? If you don't have any stars, you ain't winning. Well, in the NFL, if you ain't got a quarterback, you ain't winning. And right now, the idea that we're going to be laying nearly double digits with the best quarterbacks that the NFL has right now, I think is a very, very dangerous proposition. Don't care about history, both on Lamar's side or Stroud. Lamar has not been great in this spot. We know that. Different year, different team, different circumstances, different OC, doesn't matter. The fact that Stroud played them in game 1 of his career, while Lamar is a different quarterback, we all know Stroud is a different quarterback. I just think asking somebody to lay and beat another quality quarterback at this point in the game by double digits is crazy. This game, I think, because Marco nailed it, defenses here is going to be the name of this game here. Of course, we got to keep an eye on the weather. I hope they don't cancel or postpone this game and move it because the winds are too much here. But I'm just saying, this is a crazy, crazy, dangerous spot to think that Stroud is just a rookie. He wasn't supposed to be here, right? Rookies don't win playoff games. Yeah, well, so much for that. That went out the window. They're playing great football. Baltimore has a week off. That's always dangerous, especially early. To me, you want to give me 9.5 points, and I've got a quarterback just as good as the guy on the other side. I'll take those 9.5 points here. Baltimore wins, but they're not blowing Houston off the field in this one.
Oh boy, this one makes me a little apprehensive with my 20-1 Ravens ticket because all I can think of is what is going to go wrong over the next few weeks, even though they will be a dog to the Niners in the Super Bowl. Speaking of the 49ers, the Packers shocked the world, as Mr. Raineri said. Not so shocking if you've seen Dallas historically, but I did not have anything to do with either side in that one. Just an easy over, hit some prop bets. That was fun. Now the Packers have to play a team that, well, last year lost everybody prior to playing in the playoffs, and including Brock Purdy. I also think this line is rather telling. Jordan Love We're going to see what he's made of here, Joe Raineri. But as I mentioned, seems like just pick the winner. It seems very easy to just say, well, give me the chalk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it does. And that may well be the case here. However, I do think of these big favorites that we have this weekend, I don't know if both are going to advance. I also don't know that both are going to cover, but it wouldn't shock me if one does and one doesn't. And in this game, you know my feelings about laying big numbers when we're playing with hot quarterbacks, and we're playing with quarterbacks, quite honestly, that are growing up right in front of our eyes here with Jordan Love. Nobody has been playing the position better than Jordan Love. So instead of picking a side, I'm going to pick on the total here, because I don't see any reason why the 49ers won't have the Green Bay defense running around like their, heads were cut off, can't figure out where to go. I have no problem thinking the 49ers are going to score points and they're going to get their share. But I also have absolutely no problem in thinking that Green Bay is going to get some points here. Now, San Francisco may very well run away with this game in the second half. That's great. If that's the case, I promise you this thing's flying over 50.5 points, which is exactly how I'm looking at this. Jordan Love has shown us time and time again over the last 30 days of the season, over the last 5 games. I mean, my goodness, there is nothing. What else can you say? The Packers have averaged 33 points in the last 4 weeks. 151.5 yards on the ground because Aaron Jones is actually healthy again. This is a much, much different team with a running game and also the level of play from the quarterback. I don't see how we don't get an absolute shootout. It may be a blowout, but if it is, great. That means we are definitely getting more than 50.5 points in this game. That's where I'm going, over the total.
I like the over as well. Joe Barry got a ton of credit last week for those Dallas Cowboy blunders. I don't think we're going to see those same mistakes from the Niners. Marco D'Angelo, you and I both have best bets in this one. So I'm going to skip over you as far as the side goes, but do you also have an opinion on the total?
Well, I can't disagree with what Joe's saying, but, I don't want to give away where I'm going. And when I talk about Jordan Love, that might do it. So I'm just going to pass right now, Kelly, and wait till we get to the best bets and break it down.
All right, Marco is passing, and I put the glasses on. That means it's time for some TNA with Mr. Ralph Michaels. There's the guy with the pen bringing all the TNA here on Bet On It. Ralph Michaels crushed last week. Even talked me into laying it with the Bills. We're going to get into some big chalk in this segment as well. But first, Ralph, we have a nerd chart.
Well, Kelly, this is just a visualization for people. This is division round, teams that had a bye. And I want you to take a look. I highlighted the colors. There's been no true pattern. You see the top 3 are in a box. Why? Because in 2020, we went to the expanded playoffs with only one team having a bye. You see that in the last 3 years, the one team that's had a bye, those teams have actually gone 1-5 to the over, and they're actually 2-4 ATS since 2020. But it just gives you a visualization that you can't go into this round and say, I'm going to play the over because the team had a bye, play the under because the team had a bye, or play the home team or the road team. So I will post this on Twitter, just more to let your eyes see exactly year by year what's happened for those teams with a bye in this division round.
I love it because I am a visual person. That's why Ralph brings me the nerd charts every single week. Okay, Ralph, divisional round, we've got 5 systems, trends, angles, things to look for. Let's get into it.
Well, Kelly, when I broke down the chart that we just saw, I want to break it down since 2017 and from 2003 to 2016. While I said that the team with the bye has gone 2-4 ATS in the last 3 years, going back to 2017, the team with the bye has actually gone 10-7-1 against the spread. That is 58.8%. But then on the flip side, I want to point out, if you look at the teams from 2003 to 2016 that had a bye, They have actually gone 22 and 34, 39.3% against the spread. So it's been positive of late, but prior to that, the team with the bye is actually a negative as the lines got inflated. I do want to point out one thing, Kelly, which you brought to my attention. Give out to Eric M on X. He does follow us, and he requested via tweet. What about the first quarter with the teams on a bye from the last few years? Well, I will say this. This shocked me, Eric, and that's why I love getting questions from you guys, because you break out some things with that fall out. Kelly, the teams that had a bye have actually gone 14-4 straight up the last couple years. But in the first quarter, the team with the bye has actually gotten outscored 6.1 to 5.1. If you look at the first half average score, it's 17.5 to 9.1. So the teams with a bye have gotten off to a slow start. That really doesn't surprise me, because the other teams played last week. The teams with a bye have actually, again, outscored the first quarter, but when you look at first half scoring, they've had a 17.5 to 9.1 edge. So be careful playing on a bye team in the first quarter, but first half advantages have been significant.
That is very interesting. Thank you, Eric, for a question. If you guys have a question for Ralph, you can hit him up on Instagram, Ralph Michaels WT, or on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Okay, Ralph, let's break down a few more, we'll call them suggestions, things to look for in the divisional round.
Well, Kelly, we're going to talk about big favorites. And this is one where you can make a record sound very good, but you have to analyze all the data. Well, what am I talking about? Well, Kelly, you had mentioned the double-digit favorites in the playoffs. Double-digit favorites in the playoffs since 2011 are now 13-0 straight up, 12-1 against the spread. The only loss was Buffalo, I think, against Miami last year. When we look at teams that have a bye that are a double-digit favorite, they are 7-1 against the spread and a perfect 8-0 over-under. Now, I know San Fran was a double-digit favorite. Now they're a 9.5-point favorite. While the double-digit favorites have absolutely been gold in the playoffs, when I looked at favorites from 6.5 to 9.5, those teams have actually gone 13-29. That is 31% against the spread. And in this round, favorites of 6.5 to 9.5 that had a bye have actually gone 6-14 against the spread. So again, San Fran right on the cusp of being a 9.5 or 10-point favorite. But when you have an anomaly like that, from 6.5 to 9.5, you're 31%, and from 10 or over, you're 92%. You have to look at which of those numbers are more relative. So very, very dynamic differences. And these are the situations, Kelly, where I could say, oh, look, big favorites are, but you have to look at what those favorites are just below that line to really see if there is true value. So in this instance, I'm going to say you have to throw both sides of the data out, although you're going to see interesting tweets that double-digit favorites are great, and someone else may turn around and say, oh, look how bad favorites are in the 6.5 to 9.5 point range. That's why you break down the analysis and don't just take a ATS number at its existence without diving in deeper, slightly higher line or slightly lower line.
Yeah, that is really interesting, Ralph, but I'm glad you were able to dig that up because like I mentioned, I ended up on the Bills last week that pushed 10-1 against the spread. And then it wasn't until they were only up 7 that somebody had tweeted Josh Allen as a double-digit favorite. I'm going, how did I miss that? So there always is cherry-picked data to how people want to spin it, so always beware there. What else do you have for us, Ralph?
Well, how about playoff teams off a win as a dog in the playoff? So this does not count the final regular season game if you won as a dog. This is a playoff win as a dog since 2012. while the team that won as a dog, like the Texans, the Packers, and the Buccaneers, have only gone 12 and 23 straight. Those teams have actually gone 21 and 14, 60% against the spread in their next game. And I will also mention this. If a team is off a playoff win as an underdog since 2012, those teams have actually gone 11 and 24 over under. That is 31.4% to the over, or a very impressive 68.6% to the under. So keep an eye on the Texans, the Packers, and the Bucs, and pay attention to the over-under total in those three games. FYI, in this round, versus a team that has a bye, if you won as a dog, Texans and the Packers, those teams have gone 9 and 7 against the spread, 56.2%. So coming off a win as an underdog has been a positive situation, both in the playoffs and a slight edge versus a team that has a bye in this round.
That's very interesting. Now Ralph's making me second guess some of my stuff in regards to divisional weekend. It's tough. There's only a handful of teams last week. You know what, Ralph? I need it like last week, where the Bucs was just so easy. If we could only just fade the Eagles forever and ever. What else you got for us?
Kelly, two more situations. What happens if a playoff team scored 35 points or more? So this is a playoff game. You total 35 points or more, like the Texans or the Packers. Well, that positive momentum has carried on. Teams that have scored 35 points or more in a playoff game since 2014 have gone 16 and 7 against the spread. That is 69.6%. By the way, they've gone 10 and 13 over under, 43.5% to the over. So the Texans and the Packers each scored 35 points or more last game in a playoff. Those teams have gone on again to cover almost 70% since 2014. And as you know, when I look at one side, I like looking at the flip side. So teams off a good offensive performance. How about teams off a good defensive performance? Well, teams like the Chiefs that have held their opponents to 7 points or less in their last game have gone 54.2%, slightly above the Mendoza line. But how about this, Kelly? And this did shock me. It's very rare that I get shocked looking at a ATS angle. If your team held their opponent in the playoffs to 7 points or less last game like the Chiefs did, they have actually gone 19 and 5 over under. That is 79.2% to the over. So while you're above the Mendoza line ATS, that great defensive performance actually has led to a 79% to play on the over in the next game.
This is very interesting, Ralph. Are you going to have this up on your homepage on Wager Talk for those that are a little behind on their note-taking?
I will. I'll go ahead and throw up a PDF by later today. I will leave up the playoff PDF as well. So if you do go to my site, there's a shortcut, wt.buzz/RM. Look for the division round PDF. I'll just throw up a quick PDF and not make it too fancy. And Kelly, while there's no interesting data in this, I do want to share one more piece of information with you. I went and looked at playoff totals. Low totals, middle totals, high totals, just to let you guys know I did the work and it's not a wow. Totals under 45 have actually gone 13 and 19 over under, 59.4%. So the very low totals in the playoffs have gone under the total. Totals between 45 and 49.5 have gone 19 and 21. Basically 50-50 as far as over-unders go. And totals of 50 or higher have gone 13 and 15, 2 games under the Mendoza line. So to take the takeaway from that, totals of 45 or higher, basically the total is not factored in. The lowest totals, again, are 45 or less, have gone 13 and 19, so 40.6%. So I appreciate you guys tuning in for the division round info. And again, head to Wager Talk later today. Head to my homepage, wt.buzz/RM, and I will make this PDF for Kelly but you guys can take advantage as well.
Yay! Ralph is the best. Always taking good care of us. Thank you, Ralph. We're going to see you next week, and it's time to bring in Andy Lang for some of these props. Welcome into Prop Shop, because Andy Lang is sitting here, and he did not color coordinate with me today, but that's okay because he brought us another Best Bet winner last week. Andy, let's get into this game of mine first before we hear from you. Packers at Niners. I have a feeling I'm not going to like this one.
Well, we can both win on this one, but I'm going to take Jordan Love to throw over 1.5 touchdown passes. This is a really great number here, and I think the Packers are going to have to pass the ball quite a bit. I don't think the 49ers are going to let the Packers run the ball like the Cowboys did last week. And look at Jordan Love's numbers. He's been throwing a lot of touchdowns over the last half of the season. 3 against Dallas last week, 2 against the Bears in the last game of the regular season, 3 against Minnesota, 2 against Carolina and Tampa Bay, only 1 against the Giants. That was on the road. Very curious game there. But before that, 3 against Kansas City and Detroit, 2 against the Chargers at Pittsburgh. The 49ers team that they only allowed 20 passing touchdowns, but you go down the list, they didn't face a whole lot of great quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson threw 2 touchdowns. I would say that was the best quarterback that they faced in the last half of the season. It's the playoffs. There's no resting players. Even if the Packers are down, they're going to be out there trying till the very end. So even if it takes a late touchdown pass when the Packers are down quite a bit, because I think the 49ers do kind of roll them. I love the advantage that they have here. Still think Packers are going to air the ball out quite a bit. I love Jordan Love to get to 2 touchdown passes in this one.
Okay, then we are in agreement. And I like that. Maybe I will have to put Jordan Love over 1.5 touchdown passes in all of my lineups this weekend. Andy Lang, give me your best bet for the divisional round.
Well, the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield is the gift that keeps on giving, and Rachaad White has been great to us. But I'm going to go back to Baker Mayfield and this low line on his passing total. Right now, it's 253.5. I would get this play in. I'd play it up to 260, maybe even 262.5. This is a Lions pass defense that is really bad. They gave up the 4th most passing yards in the league in the regular season. And last week, Kelly, we saw them give up a lot of yards. They were good in the red zone. That was why they won that game. They held the Rams to field goals instead of touchdowns. But the yards were just there for the taking. And look at the last 3 quarterbacks to face this Lions team. Matthew Stafford had 367 yards passing. Nick Mullins, 396. Dak Prescott, 345. Baker Mayfield is coming off of a 337-yard game in Kelly. Baker Mayfield has had success in the playoffs. He has 7 touchdowns, and he only has 1 interception. So Baker, when he's made it to the playoffs, has been just fine. I think they're going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. I think the Lions' rush defense is better than their pass defense. I like Baker over most of his props, pass completions, pass attempts. And don't forget, even though Baker had a 300-yard game last week, it could have been much worse. Mike Evans had a couple drops. I don't see that 2 weeks in a row. I like Baker to throw the ball a ton against this Lions team. Could be a shootout. And if it is a shootout where both teams are going up and down the field, we're locking in a great number here. Give me Baker Mayfield over his passing yards.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a shootout in Detroit when I took the over 51.5 that closed 53 last week. And then neither offense did anything in the second half. Let's hope that is not the case, because I am with you. Baker Mayfield, the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you to Andy Lang at Bump Sports on Twitter, at Andy Lang Bets on Instagram. Make sure you guys are giving him a follow at both locations. Let's bring back in Joe and Marco, because it's time to talk about those Sunday divisional round games. 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now hitting 7 at a couple of shops on the Wager Talk odds screen at the Detroit Lions, 48.5. Marco, I text John Murray late in the third quarter there in Tampa, and I said, what do you make the line? I said 4.5. He said, nah, Cade, we're probably going to march out a 6. So to see this one starting to hit 7 at a couple of places is a little high for me. Maybe last few years living near Tampa Bay has made me a little biased, but I liked what I've seen out of the Bucs over the last few weeks. I think they've really shown some grit. And I criticized Todd Boyle probably week 3. And I said, I thought you were supposed to be a defensive-minded coach. And I finally got some defense from this Bucs team. Is this a case where we want to take the better defense plus the points?
Well, Kelly, that's where I'm going to end up, but for a couple different reasons. And, the general narrative here, and let's start with the hype of last week's game between the Lions and the Rams. That was the most hyped game. It was the most anticipated game. It was the Sunday night game. All eyes were on that game, especially me, because that was my biggest play of the weekend. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me with the Lions winning and not covering, but from a pure fan standpoint, that game was everything that we imagined. And my question here, and I know this is going to sound stupid, so don't be coming at me on Twitter and X, and YouTube, is do the Lions have any kind of letdown this week? When you watch that game, we know it's been 32 years since the Lions have won a playoff game. Literally, they were showing people in the stands that were crying for joy at the end of the game. I mean, they were that happy with fans crying. At the end of the game, whenever you saw the interview with Jared Goff, it was everything he could possibly do not to show the emotion and cry on national TV. That was the biggest, most satisfying win in his career. He got to bring Detroit the first playoff win in 32 years, and he got to do it against the team that gave up on him. I am worried about Jared Goff coming back with a great game this week. That's my concern if I'm a Lions fan. And as far as Tampa Bay goes, how many people are going to dismiss their win last week? First of all, they're going to say they got a disadvantage because they played on Monday, and now they got to go on the road and play Detroit. That is true. It is a problem. But one of the benefits is they did play them already this year. So preparation is going to be a little bit easier. The second thing is, and sorry, Dan, people are going to dismiss that Tampa Bay win because Philadelphia was so bad down the stretch. I get that. And we saw once Philadelphia, they should have been blown out in the first half. Somehow they were still hanging around. But once the tush-push got stopped on that 4th and 1, it was game over. It was done for Philadelphia. So my concern here is that they are overvaluing the Lions. I'm looking at Tampa. I don't know that they can go in and really pull off the win. I know I said pick the winner, and you've got the play, but I think it's going to come down to a field goal, and I'm going to go ahead and take the points. I would tell you to wait till Sunday. We're seeing the market creep up to 7, and being that this is a Sunday game, John Q. Public's not going to be playing the Sunday games on Saturday, okay? They wait to see how they did on Saturday and how much money they got left in their account to play on Sunday. And when they play on Sunday, they're not playing Tampa Bay, all right? I'm going to wait. I'm going to take Tampa Bay. You get the 7. If you get the 7, go ahead and grab it because it won't go to 7.5. So that's what I'm looking for. Take Tampa Bay, better defense, getting the points. And let's be honest, Baker Mayfield, love him or hate him, he's had a decent season, and he's got something to prove too. I'm going to go with the Bucs.
Joe, I agree with Marco here. Side with the Bucs. Don't know if I'm going to get to the window with them, but man, if it gets much higher, I'm probably going to have no choice here. I've seen this Bucs team in action more than any other teams, at least in person this year, and I would agree with Marco. Baker's ceiling is significantly higher than I thought it was. Floor, I'm sure, has not bottomed out yet. This Detroit defense, my goodness, should we have cashed that over, first and foremost, and we didn't. They had some real bonehead moves that, well, frankly, I was kind of shocked that Matthew Stafford was really able to exploit there. And I have some questions on whether or not the Bucs will be able to exploit them as well. And then I look in the Slack channel and I see you and I not agreeing in regards to the total here. Do you think we're going to see a defensive performance from both teams?
Well, here's what I'll say. First, towards to Marco there with backing Tampa. I love Todd Bowles. He's a Jet guy, right? I thought he was absolutely set up to fail with his tenure at the New York Jets versus at DC, but then they gave him the head coaching job, and they were basically tanking and expected him to do something. So I love the success he is having at Tampa, and I love over the last couple of seasons. Tampa 6-0 against the number when avenging a loss. We also have seen them now as a dog under Todd Bowles, 8-1 against the number in road games this year. 7-1 against the number as a road underdog this year. So kudos to Todd Bowles. Love that the guy is having the success. Love that he is in the playoffs. To your point about the total, Cal, here's the thing that stuck out to me about that game here. First of all, a lot of things happened with that Rams-Detroit game. You know the one thing that didn't happen? The over. Because the game stayed under. Why? Because the Detroit Lions, after adjustments made by the Rams defense, which was so beatable, they scored 3 points in the second half, and that came off a 54-yard field goal. They had 3 straight 75-yard touchdown drives in the first half. They had 116 total yards on the next 5 drives. They were lucky to win that game against the Rams. So what it told me was, once they made the adjustments to Rams, and we're not talking about a very experienced defense, I would say one can make the argument, right? Tampa's defense with Todd Bowles, this is a much better defense than what the Rams had. Even though they had Aaron Donald, kudos. As a unit, this Tampa defense is much better than the Rams. And the Rams managed to figure out what Detroit was doing, and guess what? Stuck it to them the rest of the game. They couldn't move the ball or score. So what is going to happen with the better defense now has already played them and knows exactly what they're going to be dealing with, and they have revenge on their mind. I think the best unit on this field, and I love what the offense is, what Baker Mayfield has done. The best units on this field are going to be the defense of the Tampa Bay Bucs. If you noticed in that Eagles game, you watch the Eagles defenders try and tackle somebody. Did you see what Tampa's defense and the way they swarmed around those players? Every player. This is a defense that is hell-bent on causing pain and causing aggravation and getting revenge. I don't see how that changes here. I would love to say, hey, this is going to be a wild shootout, but we said that with the Rams and it didn't work out. Why? Because I think there's limitations to Detroit's offense once adjustments are made. That's Jared Goff for you. No way do I think we go over 48.5. I think the defenses are going to be the true stars of this game.
Oh, all right, Joe. I'm going to kick it right back to you because we have another game that has my brain in a pretzel. 6:30 Eastern on CBS Sunday night. Kansas City at Buffalo. Buffalo, a 2.5-point favorite, and it's not moving off that number, I don't think. 46.5 is the total. I put this on Instagram. I said, how do we not just tease the Chiefs, right? I know the total's a little high for a teaser, but it just seems so easy. My problem is I can't trust the Chiefs and their receivers. I'm not sure I can trust the Bills either.
Well, here's a couple issues with this game here. Number one, who the hell is left healthy on the Bills? Did you see the way they were carting people off the damn field against Pittsburgh? It was kind of crazy. So I do think the availability of some of these guys on the Bills is going to be huge. But I think we also have to remind ourselves, and I think this is what happened to some of us over the last couple of weeks, don't overthink it, okay? These two teams have been destined to get to this particular point. Buffalo has spent the last 3 years building a roster, coaching, and these players have all been dying for an opportunity to get the game in Orchard Park instead of it going through Arrowhead. Well, they've got it. Now, both of these teams are also not those teams over the last couple of years that had those great battles and those great wars. No. They both have warts here. Having said that, the level of familiarity between these two teams, right? These two teams already played earlier this year. Buffalo always beats them in the regular season. They can't beat them in the postseason. I'm not overthinking this. This is a one-score game, period. There's not going to be a blowout one way or the other. Don't overthink it. If you can get me over a touchdown, take the damn points, because Buffalo, I think, is going to win this game. Buffalo ain't winning it by more than a touchdown. So, to me, take it. Take the teaser, 2.5 points up to 8.5. Sit back and enjoy the game. It's going to be maybe the best game we get all playoff long. but it ain't going to be by more than one score, Cal. So don't overthink it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Just play Kansas City in teasers.
I'm definitely overthinking it. But of course I am Marco D'Angelo. Let's talk about Josh Allen's performance against your Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a little bit there where I was like, and this is why you don't lay double digits, Kelly, because that's just not something you do. And then this team the better team, unfortunately for you, did prevail. I was catching glimpses of it. We were at the Hard Rock before the Bucs game, so I did miss the whole fourth quarter outside of, scrolling on the Score app. But I think my problem with the Chiefs is they just haven't showed me what they're capable of on offense, right? What we've seen historically from this team. And granted, that's what happens when you pay your quarterback millions and millions of dollars. Sometimes you lose the important personnel around him. But even Travis Kelce has regressed, who was basically his right-hand man his entire career, all those Super Bowl wins or at least Super Bowl appearances. So, Marco, help me make sense of this one because it is almost like lay the 2.5 for the Bills or maybe take the Bills money line and put the Chiefs in a teaser.
There it is, Kelly. That's what you do. It's not rocket science.
Overthink it. Perfect.
It's taken the whole season for you to find these standalone games to go ahead and tease it over the touchdown and come back and take the other side money line and minus the small number. The last 3 games, as Joe said, we're talking about 3, 4, and 6-point decisions. And oh, by the way, the 6-point decision, the biggest one of the 3, that was in overtime. Okay? So, yeah, you tease Kansas City to 8.5. Then you come back and you decide Sunday night. And you know what? We complain about some of the games we've had to watch and what time slots we had to watch them in. 2 weeks in a row for the playoffs. They got it right. They gave us the best game on the weekend card for the Sunday night game. Last week it was the Rams and the Lions. This week it's the Chiefs and the Bills. And yes, Buffalo has wanted this game in Orchard Park for how long? The Buffalo game on Monday, and I am just absolutely, utterly amazed that I did not get an FCC fine watching that game on Monday because I was doing a live radio show at the Westgate during the Steeler game. And I had money on the Bills, and I was in full Steeler attire while I was still in the game. So you want to talk about being bipolar, watching the game and, doing live broadcast, that was dicey. But, here's the thing. Without TJ Watt, it was a no-brainer for me. Buffalo was going to have success. And I thought that the key to the game, and I've said it numerous times on this show, Pittsburgh has problems with mobile quarterbacks that can run the football. And there isn't anybody better than Josh Allen at running the football. And he's, it's when he runs the football. It's whenever he converts third downs, when people are dropping back into coverage. That's a problem, and that was the difference in the game. The 2 turnovers early, Pittsburgh battled back, but then it was another key Josh Allen run that kept the drive going and got them the score. This week, I think it's the same thing. They have a disadvantage of playing on Monday, but just like I said in the Tampa Bay game, they have 2 advantages that kind of cuts that disadvantage away. One of them is they're not traveling like Tampa is, so that's a benefit. And 2, just like Tampa played Detroit earlier, so did Buffalo play Kansas City earlier. And as Joe alluded to, they've played how many times in the last 3 years? These 2 teams know each other well. So I'm not worried about that. The injuries are a problem for Buffalo. But on the flip side, Kansas City, even though they won last week by a margin, did you really feel confident with that offense? Like they did so often. And if you remember, my play on the game last week with Kansas City was the team total over in the first half because they always do well in the first half, especially their first possession because of the scripted plays. After that, man, this offense struggles. And that's my concern in this game. Are they going to be able to find and make enough plays? And if it comes down to the 2 guys, Buffalo still has more weapons to help Josh Allen, and Josh Allen can take over a game by himself running the football. For me, I'm going to have as many teasers as I can live with Kansas City going into it, and then come back Sunday night and decide how much I want to have to try to middle the other way with Buffalo. That's how I'm playing it.
Yeah, Marco, I'm looking right now on the Wager Talk odds screen. 145, pretty much the best money line available. I don't know if it's going to stay that way. Don't forget, guys, money lines move differently than the actual spread does. They are not correlated. The bookmakers keep them independent within themselves. So keep an eye on that one. But I think that is going to be the move for me. The problem is there's nobody to tease the Chiefs with now because I waited too long. We'll see if
well, then just I'll tell you what, I hope the game starts and hope Kansas City scores first, because if they do, you're going to be able to get a hell of a number on Buffalo on the money line.
Very, very good point. On that note, we're going to pivot here because it's the end of a very quick show here in the divisional round. It's time for those best bets. Now, there's not a lot that I loved this weekend, right? And speaking of love, that is the quarterback I'm going to be going against. I agree. He has superseded everybody's expectations, maybe except for Marco, who thought they were going to win the NFC North. Just a little behind the curve, Marco. So close, because this team, hey, they've been playing their asses off. Aaron Jones has just been prolific on the ground. But let's not forget what this 49ers defense is capable of. They are going to be able to shut down that run. They are going to put pressure on Jordan Love and cause him to make mistakes. On the flip side, they have a little running game of their own with Christian McCaffrey. San Francisco leads the NFL with run plays over 10 yards or more. And we know Joe Barry got to keep his job last weekend because of that outright winner in Dallas. I'm not sure he can get his team prepared enough to be able to stop this run. I know that it's super chalky, and everybody's probably going to be on this side, but I'm going to lay the 9.5 here with the 49ers, who have a hell of a lot to prove after just getting decimated by injuries last season. And maybe that's why I liked that Eagles lost so much more over the last week or so, because that was a painful game that I had the 49ers in. Now, again, Packers, I want to give them all the credit in the world. I adore this team, but their run ends in San Francisco, laying 9.5 with the Niners. Marco, I tried to keep that short and sweet, and then I didn't shut up because you also have the same best bet.
Oh, well, both of us are not showing any love for Jordan Love this week. And, you know, I had been on the Jordan Love bandwagon much earlier than most people. But you know what? Now I'm going to be a realist. In last week, everything just came way, way too easy for Green Bay and Jordan Love. I mean, Kelly, there were receivers so wide open. I mean, there was a screenshot of the one Green Bay touchdown that there wasn't a Dallas defender in the area code. I mean, it was ridiculous. And as good as Jordan Love has played, and as Joe said when he broke it down earlier, he has been the best quarterback over the last half of the season. There's no question about that. But let's look at really who the quarterback faced over the last 6 weeks of the season. He faced Tampa Bay. That is a good defense. I'll give him credit there. Then they played Carolina. Okay, we know Carolina's not good. They faced a decimated Minnesota team. They faced Chicago. We know all the problems that Chicago has. And then last week, Dallas. Okay, I don't know what kind of defense they were trying to play, but there was no defense there. Now they've got to face one of the best defenses in the NFL. You've got a team that is number one defensively in yards per play allowed. They are number two in points per game allowed. And as you said, Kelly, it was a long off season for San Francisco. Not because they had a tough loss, a gut-wrenching loss. It was because they had no shot. Their chances went up in smoke when their quarterback got hurt early in the Philadelphia game, in the NFC Championship game. Every one of those players felt like they got cheated out of a shot for the Super Bowl, that was their year last year. And it isn't often that you get a chance to have a mulligan and get to do it over again. We saw what they did when they faced Philadelphia in the regular season. That was the first step. They took out all their vengeance on Philadelphia and absolutely crushed them. And that is what started the demise of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now it's the playoffs. This is a team that is built for the playoffs. We say defense is what wins championships. This team is sound both sides of the football, offensively and defensively. When they have all of their pieces on the field, how do you stop this team? Brock Purdy, when he's got both Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, they are unstoppable. They throw the football. They have the running game with Christian McCaffrey, and then you've got the dual threat with Deebo, whether you're using him as a receiver or you're using him in gimmick running plays. I am taking this team. I'm laying the points. And Kelly, I've said this over and over, more so in college football, but if there was a team that was built this way in the NFL, it's San Francisco. I don't mind laying points with a team that can run the football. Why? Because when you're protecting the lead in the fourth quarter, you're doing what you do best, and you can extend the lead while killing clock. Give me the 49ers. That's my best bet, Kelly.
Always in good company when Marco D'Angelo and I agree. Joe Raineri, well, shocking. He's going with a total for his best bet.
I am, and let's just hope they don't cancel this Chiefs and Buffalo game because it gets a little too cold. Just saying, you never know with Kathy Hochul, I guess, these days. So let's talk about the total here, though, in this Bills-Kansas City game. Yeah, I guess it should be also mentioned the Bills, by that cancellation, got screwed because now they're going to be on a short week taking on Kansas City, who had, worse conditions in a lot of aspects. But, hey, they still managed to get that game done on Saturday, and they were victorious. Looking at the weather slated for this game, it's not great. There are already talks here about being travel restrictions going on here this week. Wind, again, is the thing that we are most concerned with for this game. Injuries, obviously. We know their linebacker, Terrell Bernard, went down. We know Christian Benford, Taron Johnson, all of these guys for Buffalo. Boy, oh boy, they could use maybe one of them to get back. That would really help them. But Rasul Douglas looks like he will be back in this one. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde in the secondary. They are healthy and ready to go. So they might not have the most depth back there, but let's be realistic with this Kansas City team, guys. This is not the Kansas City Chiefs of the last couple of years. Travis Kelce, for whatever reason, might be a little distracted, or he might just have lost a step here in his career. And I think maybe that without somebody like Tyreek Hill on the outside, maybe that defenses have figured out take away him, and they are going to have some issues offensively. Although Rice has really stepped up for him, which is great. But there is a big difference here between going into the elements here again, wind and everything that we're going to have, and expecting this to be a wild shootout between these two teams. Don't forget, these two played at Arrowhead earlier this year. Conditions weren't great, but you know what? They combined for 37 points. We also know that Kansas City is winning games because they're playing amazing defense, and they're running the ball with Pacheco way more, including, we all talked about how you're going to expect Josh Allen to run, and he will, but so will Mahomes. Both of these guys very dangerous with their legs. The Chiefs have gone under in 4 straight, 5 of the last 6. Buffalo is going to be in it in this one. I think this is going to come down to a final possession. But when that happens, both have really good field goal kickers for these kinds of conditions. I don't see this thing getting over 46 points. I think this is a dead under, like we would expect it to be, with defenses having their way at points in this game and red zone offenses struggling to score when it matters. 2 great coaching staffs that know each other. This is going to be a rock fight here, not one that I want to be holding an over ticket for, so I'm on the under.
Ooh, another under in Buffalo for Joe, and let's hope it doesn't get moved for his sake. That would be, that's disgusting. But remember, guys, check your house rules at your sports book. There was a lot of discrepancy this past weekend. On that note, we're going to have to see you guys for the championship round because the divisional round right here on the recap graphic. Thank you from myself, Joe, Marco, Andy, and of course, Ralph Michaels for tuning in each and every week here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. We love you guys. Let's make some money this weekend.